All right, and welcome back to another Throwback Thursday. It's one of my favorite things that we do, where we just dive into a property that we basically bought and sold, or got under contract and sold, or basically just wholesale. That's what we're all about, and that's what we're talking about here. And a lot of times, there's some wins, there's some tough things that happen. This was a flop for us. I'm just gonna be honest. This was a bad deal. We didn't do a great job. We didn't do our full due diligence, and it hurt us. It ended up biting us a little bit. But one thing that we did with it, even though it wasn't a good deal for us, it bit us a little bit, we were able to do a little something creative on the sales side of it that maybe we can get a little bit of money back. So that's what we'll kind of do when we talk about this property. This is one over in the kind of the Butler-Tarkington area, just north of Crown Hill, and on 39th Street, around in that area and stuff like that. It's a nice area. And this wasn't a bad property, but the thing with what happened with this deal is, this property is brought to us in a package deal with another property from another wholesaler. And basically something kind of happened within our team of our communication broke down. And that happens. And that's why we need to make sure our systems are in place. And this is a good thing for us to basically just recalibrate and say, hey, this is what happened to this one. Let's refocus. Let's make sure we have our systems in place to understand. Let's make sure we understand our communication, those types of things. This was brought to us as a package deal with two properties. And basically, I was the one that analyzed it, so I'll go ahead and take the blame for this one and stuff. But what I basically said was like, hey, for this package, for these two properties, I'm good at this price. And basically, within our communication, something kind of broke down, and our acquisition manager thought that was the price for basically one property, for the one property that I'm talking about here on 39th Street. So basically, they offered that price for this one, and then another price for the other property where we felt kind of comfortable, kind of where I was with my numbers on that one. The other one we ended up making money on. It was actually a pretty decent deal. This one, it was the price of the whole package. We bought the property for that price. So right away we're like, oh man, then we spent too much on this one. We didn't back out of the deal though. We said we are going to buy it. The owner was ready to get rid of it. So we went ahead and did it. We thought we'd be able to break even. Honestly, we held this one for like 200 some odd days. So we held on to it for a while, and it was just kind of one of those things of we needed to do something with it. We realized that, hey, we weren't going to break even on it. It just needed too much work for the area that it was in. So it wasn't a bad property, just too much work, had a little mold damage, things like that. So Ronnie, before I talk about kind of what happened on the sale of this one, how important is that? Is kind of, you and I do this all the time. So you're analyzing deals, but you're running some deals past me too to analyze. But talk about how important that is, just kind of the communication that you have within your team. Even if you're like a two-person team, or you're working with a VA or something like that, no matter how big or small your team is, but how important is communication when we're working on deals and analyzing deals?
Yeah, communication is everything. I mean, because especially when you're dealing with package deals, I see them all the time where there's 6 and 7 packages, properties that are coming over, and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, what is the pricing, and making sure you understand the price breakdown. Even when you're running your numbers, you're saying, okay, I'm going to buy these 3 properties for $75,000. It is very important to pay attention that you know exactly what you're paying for what property, because tax and sales value, because when you're selling those things, I mean, that really does matter. So just knowing exactly what you're getting your hands into, knowing exactly what your numbers are for properties, and making sure that your team members are also aware of, hey, this is what we're paying for this particular property, and this is what it should be for the entire package. That is so vital, so that you don't make the mistakes, again, that we're okay, that we made.
Yeah. So like I said, this ended up being it was a flop for us. Not going to hide that. It was, and sometimes you have bad deals, and sometimes that happens and things like that. But this one we ended up, so we bought this one, we held it for a little while. We ended up losing like 10 grand on this one when we sold it. But we did something a little creative. Randy was able to work out with the buyer. Basically, the buyer's going to flip this one. So what Randy kind of worked out with this one is on the back end of when he flips it and sells this property, we ended up getting like a certain percentage of what he makes from profit. So even though on the front end we lost 10 grand and we had to take that hit, there's a possibility on the back end we might get a little bit of that back. So that's kind of exciting, knowing that we can at least like maybe recoup some of that. But that was something a little creative that Randy was able to work out, so we didn't lose that all completely. But that's what happens with these deals. Sometimes you have to get creative, just be able to, number one, get rid of them, get them off your plate, get rid of the contract, whatever it may be. So hopefully on the back end, this ends up being okay. We're still going to take a little bit of a hit, but hopefully it's not too bad, like a 10 grand hit. So, all right. Thanks a lot, guys. And we will see you back next week. Hopefully we'll have a positive story for you next week, on a story with Throwback Thursday.